This is 4.3, Graphing Proportional Relationships. A proportion is a relationship from one thing to another. So it'd be like $3 for every pen. We could write that as a fraction, 3 over 1, or we can write it as a colon, which is this symbol. We would say 3, 2, 1. A proportional relationship is when we have two quantities, x and y, and those are proportional. The relationship can be represented by the equation y equals mx, where m is the constant of proportionality. We also know that m is slope. So if we're given a rate or a slope, we are going to use that when we are graphing. So the graph of y equals mx is a line with slope of m, and it passes through 0, 0. That's called the origin. That's where the x-axis meets the y-axis. And so let's say the cost in dollars for x pounds of apples is represented by y equals 1.5x. We're going to graph this and interpret the slope. We have two different methods that we can do, and the first one is going to be using a table of values. We've done this before. The second is going to be using the slope. So for my table of values, I'm going to have my x's, get the y values based on what x is, and then I'll put them together to have the point. So when x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is 1.5. When x is 2, y is 3. And when x is 3, y is 4.5. So if I make my graph, I am going to plot my points 0, 0, 1, 1.5, 2, 3, and 3, 4.5. Connect them together with a line, and I have my graph here. Method 2, we're going to use the slope. I know the equation is in the form y equals mx, and I know that slope is m, and here m was 1.5. And it's going to go through the origin, so I could start with my origin. And then I also know that slope is rise over run. So that means I'm going to go up 1.5 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1.5 to the right 1, put another one. Up 1.5 to the right 1, up 1.5 to the right 1. And so we get our graph here. Now it says to interpret the slope. So what does the slope mean? What does this 1.5 mean? And we know that it shows that for the unit cost, so for 1 pound of apples, for every 1 pound of apples I buy, it costs $1.50. So it's $1.50 per pound of apples. Alright, the distance y in miles your friend rides his mountain bike is proportional to the time in hours that he rides. Your friend rides 25 miles in 5 hours. Write an equation that represents the situation. So I know I'm going to use y equals mx, and they said that y is miles, and that was 25. I don't have a rate. So I don't have something as like miles per hour. I could find that, but I don't have it yet. But I do have time, and that's going to go in for x, and that's 5 hours. So if I find the rate, I would divide each side by 5 to get 5 miles per hour for m, which in my equation, that's going to be y equals 5x. So this is my equation. Now I'm going to use that to say, at this rate, how many hours will it take him to ride his bike 225 miles? So if y equals 5x, I know that the distance is going to be 225, and I'm looking for the time. So I'm looking for what is x. To solve for x, divide each side by 5, and x equals 45. So that means it takes 45 hours for him to ride 225 miles at the rate of 5 miles per hour. That's kind of slow, but that's how fast he's going.